I hate my game. I don't want to spend another second working on it. It's not even going to make any money. All of us feel this way eventually once you work on your game long enough. But what are you supposed to do? Do you quit and restart, or do you force yourself to finish despite losing motivation? If so, how? Well, after releasing my first game and nearly quitting my second game, I believe I have the definitive answer. Here's the thing. You've probably already heard the advice out there that says just make a simple game. But for most of us, there's just no way that would work. You either love everything about your idea, or if you're already at the point of quitting, there's nothing you love about your game anymore. So how do you solve this? How do you actually finish your project when you can barely bring yourself to open the game engine? Well, for starters, you should ask yourself a very simple question. Take a step back from your game and answer honestly. How much progress have you made? Is your game just the default Unreal robot walking around a terrain? If you've only gotten that far and you already hate your game, it's not because you failed or because you're not good enough, it's simply because you learned a lot. You see firsthand just how much effort it takes to get started. Your next game will be tighter, simpler, and you'll love it. But what about if you have a lot of progress? What if you've invested a ton of time and mental energy into this thing? This is the exact situation I was in for both my games. For my first game, it was this complicated immersive sim with melee combat, stealth, and magic, and I was going to make 5 levels and I never would have gotten it done. My current game is an RPG. It also has melee, combat, stealth, and blessings instead of magic. It was going to be open world and have factions and dungeons. It's a mess, and it's even bigger than the first game. For both of them, I got really stressed once I realized it would take me ages to get done. I wasn't getting enough wishlists to make it worthwhile, and I was just not having fun at all. But in both cases, there was a little spark that I enjoyed. For Air Obscure, I loved the stealth system I made, and I was really invested in the story. So I focused the game on those two things. I got rid of the combat. It wasn't that good anyway, and it was one less thing players would complain about. And I just made one spooky enemy that chases you while you progress through the story. For Robin Hood, I'm going to do something similar. The combat is actually pretty good, so is the stealth. But the problem is there's just way too much going on. I still have to implement making potions and getting loot from chests. I have a bunch of blessing effects to make, dungeons to build, dialogue to write, and a lot of this should honestly just be cut. I always wanted to make an RPG with a lot of character builds, but trying to balance all of that is terrifying. I'd much rather again focus on the story. What I think I'm going to do is remove everything that makes this game an RPG and keep it a stealth game. Instead of an open world, I'll keep it to 3 short levels and really simplify the story I was originally going to tell. I'm not going to add any potions or anything. It'll just be melee combat, archery, stealth, 1 weapon, 1 bow, and it'll be done. So how do you do this for your game? How do you actually know what to keep and what to cut? Well, it depends, but here are some rules of thumb. First of all, if you're making an open world game or a game with lots of levels, ask yourself this: will you actually lose the heart of the game by launching it with only 1 level? You can squeeze the best parts of your story into 1 area and just sell it as a short, tight sandbox experience. Second, if you're planning on creating a bunch of different abilities but making more feels like it'll be exhausting, no worries. Instead, take that 1 ability that's almost done and build the whole game around it. It doesn't have to be unique. If you only have 1 ability, then you can focus on using it to its full potential in the level design, even if it's just basic, boring shooting. Thirdly, what if your game is still missing its most important features? What if you don't have enemies or crafting or whatever the core was supposed to be? Well, if you're still having fun, you can keep going, but if you're at the point where you really want to move on, then here's the solution. What you'll notice about both of my games is that in both cases, to get the games done, I needed a radical change. In other words, my games didn't even end up the same genre as when they started. If you hate your game and the most important features aren't even there yet, then to get it done, change the genre. The easiest way to do this is to turn the game that you hate into a simple walking simulator where you just pick up notes or keys and get to the end. Throw in a super simple emotional motivation and a final payoff, and you're done. You can launch the game in 2 weeks. Every game and developer are different, so if you're still confused after this and you want more clarity about how to finish your specific game and keep the stuff you love about it, I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one about exactly what you need to do to get your game done. My calendar is open and you can book a call with me in the description. Now, there's one more question we need to answer, which is it even worth it? What's the point of launching the game if it isn't even close to what you wanted it to be? This is a critical moment of the lifespan of every solo indie game, and the short answer is yes, it's definitely worth finishing and launching. To explain why, we need to look at this chart from Chris Zukowski, Steam marketing expert. This shows games that made money. On the left, you have games that made a lot of money, and on the right, games that barely made anything. The red games are games made by developers who released a game before. What does this mean? Well, Since there's no red games on the right, statistically it means that no matter what your first game is, it's going to make no money. Why pour your heart and soul into building a new game you're excited about only to have it land on the right side of this chart when you can just use the game you're already tired of, finish it, launch it, and get it over with to drastically increase the chances for your next game? If you choose to do this, be careful, because doing this wrong can make it a huge waste of time if you draw the wrong conclusions. But doing it correctly will be the most valuable thing that you could possibly do. And thankfully, to learn everything you're supposed to learn from launching your first game and making it worth it, all you have to do is these 3 simple things. First of all, go through all the marketing beats. You need a Steam page. Why? Because of this button right here. When you launch your first game, it will get some wishlists and maybe a few sales, but when you launch your second game, instead of just shooting blind, you'll have first-hand experience about how many wishlists actually turn into sales, which means you'll know the number you have to beat for your second game and have a much clearer goal going in. The second reason to launch your game has to do with the biggest problem your second game is going to face, which is spending months and months on it only to find that players hate it. You want to talk about motivation killers? That is a motivation killer, but when you launch your first game and players leave bad reviews, you'll skip that whole rite of passage, be prepared for criticism, and plan your game with player expectations in mind. That way, your second game will be that much closer to giving players something they'll fall in love with. The third big reason that you should launch your game is something that I don't think enough new devs realize the importance of. It's more important than even trying to make money off of your first game. Without this, you'll never believe that you can ever actually finish and release a successful game. What am I talking about? Well, no matter what you do, no matter how many games you make, sooner or later you will hate your game. It'll be this endless battle of hope against despair. Every failed game, every restarted project will be like a woodpecker poking at you over and over again with this painful belief that you will just never be good enough to do this. So the real reason you need to launch your game, the reason that will transform your life and take you from endless frustration to knowing that you really are an indie game developer, is that beautiful, joyful confidence you get from knowing that you don't lack anything that those top-level game developers out there have. Your game didn't fail, you are a game developer. You know you can launch an indie game, and every time you do, you'll learn more and more, and your games will get better and better. Now, one very important thing to keep in mind is once you get to this stage, you might still have to work on your game for a few weeks or months. Eventually, you'll start a new game. Either way, sooner or later, burnout will start to creep up on you again. To make sure that doesn't happen, check out this video for 3 more tips to make sure you never quit your game again and unlock the confidence and knowledge you need to be a solo indie game developer. Thanks for watching, and God bless.